Alright fans, before we get into this video, I have a small favour to ask which will make a massive difference to my channel. Please can I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and also give this video a thumbs up. It will be massively appreciated. Fight fans, one of the big talking points in mixed martial arts right now is whether Usman Nurmagomedov will end up in the UFC. He's probably the biggest star in the sport outside of the UFC, and now that his contract with the PFL has come to an end, there's a genuine opportunity that he may consider moving to the UFC, although it is understood that he could potentially get a better offer from the PFL, particularly as they merge with MVP. I think, whilst I'm really keen on seeing all promotions prosper and have great fighters, I really want to see Usman in the UFC. It makes so much sense in terms of the types of fights we will get, and it also gives him an opportunity to build an even bigger legacy. Some of you may not necessarily watch the PFL, so you might not be super familiar with who Usman Nurmagomedov is. Just a brief introduction. As you can probably tell from the surname, he is the cousin of Khabib. He's also the younger brother of Umar. However, unlike those two, his skill set is a lot broader. He isn't just a wrestler and a grappler. He actually has a lot of good striking as well. He's knocked out some of his opponents to earn wins. Stylistically, I would say he's closer to Islam Makhachev, who is also one of his training partners. So he very much is a big part of that Nurmagomedov and Dagestani clan and family. And what he's been able to do already in the sport at 28 years of age includes 7 successful title wins as a final Bellator Lightweight Champion, and then he became the PFL Lightweight Champion, and he's just fought his final fight in the PFL. So this is really now a big time for him in terms of deciding whether he does one of two things. And here are his options. There's either A, he re-signs with the PFL ahead of the merger with MVP, and there are some benefits to that from his point of view. He becomes the face of a new promotion which is spearheaded by Jake Paul, probably gets a really good broadcast on Netflix, so his value and his marketing potential across the wider globe has a really good opportunity to increase. And undoubtedly, I think he would get a big payday from MVP, probably bigger than the UFC if reports are to be believed. But B, if he does sign with the UFC, he gets to test himself against the very best competition and compete for the UFC Lightweight Championship, which is a very prestigious belt in the Nurmagomedov and Dagestani clan. It's been held by Khabib, it's been held by Islam. He would very much be cementing himself as a legend in the sport, and also earning a championship which has a lot of pride in his close network. But also, when you look at option A, if he resigns with the PFL, ahead of the merger with MVP, if we assume that the PFL is very much just going to operate as MVP with better broadcasting, better production, but the roster will very much stay the same, he's already beaten a lot of the guys in the top 10 of the PFL lightweight division. He's beaten Alexander Shabali, he's just knocked out Archie Colgan, he's finished Alfie Davis earlier this year, he's also beat Paul Hughes on 2 occasions. 2 of the other fights which in an ideal world would be really interesting are against guys who are also part of that Dagestani clan, so unfortunately it might not be possible for us to see him face Gadzi Rapidanov or Amru Magomedov because he doesn't want to fight some of his close network friends, which is understandable. And then who else is there? I mean, if you're removing, guys who he's already fought and guys who he's unlikely to face, you've maybe got 4 contenders, but honestly speaking, maybe Jacob Kasuba and JJ Wilson will be really interesting fights, but I think Nurmagomedov is so far ahead of competition in the PFL that it makes no sense for him to stay. And I say this again, I would love to see PFL/MVP have great fighters and go to that next level and compete against the UFC, because I think competition is what makes the sport better and generally what makes any type of industry better. But then when you look at what he's already done in the PFL and the type of matchups he could get with signing with the UFC, I mean, this is the top 5 of the UFC. Imagine if he faces Justin Gaethje for the championship. I know he's not necessarily going to get a title shot right away, but you have to say that will be a really compelling fight, and I think even this version of Nurmagomedov, who hasn't fought in the UFC, a lot of people who have watched him will probably think he could beat Justin Gaethje. But then look at the top 5. Ilia Topuria, Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Paddy Pimblett. That's the top 5 alone, and there's honestly not an opponent out of that top 5 for Usman Nurmagomedov that I don't think doesn't make a great fight. You could also throw in Mauricio Hufi. You could also throw in Saladin Panaz, who's just signed for the UFC. Diego Lopez, if he moves up to the lightweight division. Benoit Saint Denis, who's a real knockout power artist, who's just outside of the top 5. You know, there's probably a couple others as well. There's so many possibilities for this lightweight division to get even better. I recently made a video about how this is now an exciting division. Imagine if Usman Nurmagomedov signs for the UFC and competes against some of these guys. It would be fantastic. And I genuinely think we would see some classic fights because he is that good. Stylistically, he is so much more diverse than Khabib and Usman Nurmagomedov. Like I said, he's more stylistically like Islam Makhachev. And he's still so young as well. I mean, he's not even reached his prime, yet he's won championships in 2 big promotions. That's another thing as well. Imagine if he goes on to become a UFC champion after being a champion in Bellator and the PFL. I mean, this guy could potentially set a legacy which is, you know, very much unique in many ways. Those are just my thoughts. I would love to see Usman Nurmagomedov in the UFC. The only reason I would like to see him stay in the PFL/MVP is if MVP, when it takes over the PFL properly as part of that merger, suddenly brings in new stars, suddenly brings in new competition, but I'm not sure who they can honestly sign that the UFC hasn't got and who they already haven't got, who Usman Nurmagomedov has already fought, for them to make any interesting fights. So for me, there's only one option, and that is B. He has to sign with the UFC in order for us to get the best out of him. But I appreciate there's going to be other things which he may consider. You know, maybe he wants to consider the financial point of view, which is very understandable. Maybe he actually wants to be comfortable and not necessarily be tested because he wants an easier life and he doesn't want to train as hard. I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, but you don't quite know what's going on in his head. But those are just my thoughts as always. Let me know what you think. How many guys in the UFC top 5 lightweight division, and also if you throw in Justin Gaethje the champion, how many of those 6 guys does Usman Nurmagomedov beat? I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know if any of those guys beat him.